In the distant future, Earth was dying. The skies were black from endless wars. The oceans boiled. The cities were nothing but ruins. And now, an alien armada, cold and merciless, was coming to finish what time had started. Earth's leaders gathered in what was left of the Global Defense Council. Their faces were tired. Their eyes showed no hope. They had no more ships, no more armies, only scraps, broken dreams. In one last desperate move, they turned to a project no one believed in. A ship that was never supposed to fly. A ship made from rusted parts, old cargo hulls, and pieces of dead satellites. Its name was the Defiant. Even the engineers who built it shook their heads. "It won't last 5 minutes in a real battle," they whispered. "It's suicide to launch it," others said. But there was no choice. Earth needed a miracle. On the day of the launch, crowds gathered, not in celebration, but in mourning. Everyone expected the Defiant to blow up right there on the launch pad. Families held each other close. Soldiers saluted with tears in their eyes. In the command center, Captain Elias Ward stood tall. His uniform was torn, patched up in places, but he wore it with pride. He placed a hand on the old metal walls of the ship and whispered, "Just get us through one battle. That's all we need." The countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Even the computer stuttered, struggling with outdated software. Sparks rained from exposed wires. Panels groaned. 3, 2, 1. The Defiant roared to life. The ground shook. The sky split open with fire. And against all odds, it lifted. The people of Earth watched in stunned silence. The ship that should have fallen apart flew. Above the clouds, the Defiant hurtled toward the incoming alien fleet. Enemy commanders laughed at the readings on their screens. One human ship, and this junk pile. They gave the order to destroy it immediately. Missiles raced toward the Defiant. Energy beams sliced through space, aiming straight for it. Inside the ship, alarms blared. "Shields failing," the engineer cried. "Engines unstable," another shouted. Captain Ward gritted his teeth. "Hold steady. Aim for the command carrier." Somehow, through smoke and shaking metal, the Defiant dodged the first barrage. Its mismatched engines gave it strange movements, zigzagging and lurching in ways enemy targeting computers couldn't predict. The alien fleet opened fire again, heavier this time. Still, the Defiant weaved through it like a ghost. Some shots hit the ship. Panels ripped open, fires broke out. But still it flew. Against all logic, against all engineering rules. Then came the moment no one expected. The Defiant charged straight through the heart of the alien formation. Guns blazing, missiles firing from makeshift tubes. It struck the enemy command carrier with a blast, meant only to distract, but it hit something critical. A chain reaction started. One ship exploded, then another, and another. In minutes, the proud alien fleet was scattering, broken, and confused. From the ruined cities of Earth, people watched the live feed, jaws dropping open. Cheers broke out, first small, then louder, rising like a storm across the planet. "The Defiant lives," someone shouted. "Our spirit isn't broken," cried another. In space, Captain Ward slumped back into his seat, sweat pouring down his face. "We're still flying," he whispered, almost not believing it himself. The crew around him, battle-scared and bleeding, began to smile. Some even laughed, pure and wild. They had survived. The ship that should have died on the launch pad had become a weapon of hope. And somewhere deep within the Defiant's cracked systems, something unseen pulsed awake. An ancient spark, a will of its own. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The galaxy could not believe the news. A broken human ship had survived a battle it should have lost. Worse, it had won. Alien commanders held emergency meetings. The footage showed a rusted human ship dodging missiles, weaving through fleets, and striking critical blows. It was not possible. It was not logical. Glitches, one admiral said. Fake recordings, said another. But deep inside, fear had started to grow. The Defiant was supposed to be dead by now. Instead, it moved like a ghost, fighting battles no ship its size could survive. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. The Defiant was barely holding together. Metal was torn. Systems were offline. Fires had only just been put out. But the engines still burned. The weapons still roared. "We have new orders," his second officer, Lieutenant Harris, said. "Command wants us to strike again. Hit their supply lines." Ward nodded slowly. They wanted to use the Ghost while they still could. The Defiant set course for an enemy convoy, 3 massive carriers, protected by a dozen warships. It was suicide. But then again, this ship was already built on impossible odds. As they approached, the crew prepared for battle. Guns were reloaded manually. Shields were patched with whatever scrap they could find. They had no backup, no escape plan. "Let's haunt them," Ward said with a cold smile. The alien convoy detected the Defiant early. Laughter echoed through their command decks. "That thing again. It's barely alive." They launched fighters to intercept. Hundreds of sleek alien ships raced toward the Defiant. Inside the battered human ship, the Eye, a patchwork of old Earth programs, clicked to life. Its voice crackled through the bridge speakers. "New threat detected. Initiating unconventional maneuvers." Before Ward could even ask, the ship jerked violently. Engines flared unevenly, throwing the Defiant into crazy spins and sudden stops. The alien fighters missed their shots by inches. They tried to adjust, but the broken ship moved like something alive, something mad. Missiles that should have been perfect strikes flew harmlessly into space. One fighter got too close. The Defiant's old railguns fired and tore it apart. Another fighter, trying to dodge the strange movements, collided with its own wingmate. Chaos spread through the enemy ranks. The alien captain screamed orders, trying to regroup. But the Defiant was already inside their lines. On the bridge, Lieutenant Harris grinned wildly. "It's working. They can't hit us." Captain Ward tightened his grip on his chair. "It's not just working," he said quietly. "They're scared." The Defiant punched through the first line of defense. It launched its last torpedoes, aimed straight for the fuel tanks of the biggest carrier. The enemy ships, too slow to respond, watched in horror as the torpedoes hit. The explosion was massive, lighting up space like a second sun. 2 enemy warships were caught in the blast and torn apart. The rest of the convoy broke formation. Some tried to flee. Some fired blindly into the darkness, hoping to hit the phantom ship. But the Defiant was already gone, vanishing into the black void like a ghost. Across the alien fleets, panic spread. "This ship is cursed," some whispered. "No ship should move like that," others said. Admirals demanded answers. Scouts were sent to track the Defiant. Bounties were offered to any mercenary who could destroy it. But each time, the Defiant escaped, leaving wreckage behind. Back on Earth, broadcasts replayed the Defiant's victories again and again. Children wore T-shirts with its image. Old veterans saluted the battered ship when it appeared on their screens. The Defiant became more than a ship. It became a symbol of defiance, of hope, of survival when survival should have been impossible. Captain Ward watched the news reports with a heavy heart. He knew the truth. The Defiant was not invincible. It was falling apart a little more after every battle. But somehow it kept flying. As he stood alone in the observation deck, looking at the stars, he felt something strange. A presence, like the ship itself was awake, watching, protecting. Ward shook his head. Maybe it was just his imagination. Or maybe, just maybe, the Defiant had become something more than metal and wires. A spirit born from humanity's will to survive. and the galaxy had not yet seen the true power of a legend that refused to die. Across the stars, whispers grew louder. The Defiant had destroyed an entire convoy. It was old, broken, and ugly, but nothing could stop it. Alien commanders were furious. They demanded answers. How could such a thing exist? In a secret meeting deep within the alien empire, warlords and scientists gathered. "This ship is not possible," the lead scientist said, slamming a tablet onto the table. "It breaks every rule of engineering." "Is it human magic?" one admiral asked, half joking. "No," the scientist snapped. "Worse, it's human madness." The Defiant didn't follow the rules of war. It didn't retreat when damaged. It didn't maneuver like a normal ship. It fought like it had nothing to lose. It fought like it was alive. The warlords agreed. The Defiant must be destroyed, no matter the cost. They ordered their deadliest hunters to track the ship down. They called them the Black Fangs. Meanwhile, far away, Captain Ward sat with his senior officers. The Defiant floated silently in deep space, hidden in the shadow of a dead moon. It was time for repairs. "What's the status?" Ward asked. Harris grimaced. "Bad. Hull breaches in 5 sections. Life support failing on Deck 3. Engines running on prayers." Ward nodded slowly. He expected no less. Still, there was no fear on the faces of his crew. Only grim smiles. They knew the Defiant had no right to still be alive. And yet it was. In the hangar bay, engineers worked with whatever scrap they could find. Old wiring, salvaged armor plates, even parts from alien ships. Every piece was wrong. Nothing matched. Nothing fit properly. But somehow, together, it worked. The Defiant was not a machine built by rules. It was a machine built by desperation and fueled by hope. Suddenly, alarms blared. "Contacts," shouted the sensor officer. "Multiple ships incoming. Fast." Captain Ward moved quickly. Shields up. Battle stations. The crew rushed to their posts, moving like a well-oiled machine despite the ship's condition. On the main screen, dark shapes appeared. The Black Fangs. Silent, deadly, built for one purpose: hunting and killing. There were 5 of them. Sleek, black ships armed with weapons powerful enough to crack planets. The Defiant had no chance. Or so they thought. The Black Fang leader, Commander Vrix, grinned inside his helmet. He had studied the Defiant carefully. "It moves like madness," he told his crew. "So we strike with cold logic." The Black Fangs surrounded the Defiant, forming a perfect trap. There was no way out. Commander Vrix opened a channel. "Human ship," he said coldly, "you are surrounded. Surrender, and we will make your deaths quick." Captain Ward laughed softly. He didn't even bother replying. Instead, he gave one simple order: attack. The Defiant lunged forward with a sudden burst of speed. Not logical, not planned, just raw instinct. The Black Fangs hesitated for a moment, just long enough. The Defiant fired all its weapons at once: missiles, railguns, pulse cannons, everything it had. Explosions rippled across space. One Black Fang ship took a direct hit and spun out of control. Another tried to dodge, but crashed into its own teammate. The perfect trap had broken. Now it was chaos. Commander Vrix roared in anger. "Regroup. Destroy it." The Black Fangs tried to reorganize, but the Defiant moved too fast, too wrong. Its broken engines gave it impossible turns. Its damaged hull made it invisible to some scanners. It was a nightmare in metal form. The Defiant tore through the hunters like a wolf among sheep. Within minutes, 3 Black Fang ships were burning wrecks. The last 2 flooded into the darkness. Silence fell on the bridge of the Defiant. Smoke rose from control panels. Sparks fell from the ceiling. The ship shook from damage. But it was still alive. The crew stared at the ruined viewscreen, barely believing what they had done. They had fought professional killers, And one. Captain Ward let out a slow breath. "We're not supposed to exist," he said quietly. "And yet, here we are." The Defiant floated in the dark, battered but victorious. A ghost that refused to die. A nightmare that even the strongest hunters could not defeat. In the alien empire, the news hit like a hammer. The Black Fangs were gone. 5 ships, gone. Destroyed by a rusted human ship. Fear spread like wildfire. Some alien commanders began moving their fleets away from human space. Others called for peace talks. No one wanted to meet the Defiant in battle. The legend grew. Whispers spoke of a ship made of scraps, with the soul of a dragon. A ship that broke the laws of war. A ship that fought not with strength, but with pure, stubborn spirit. And somewhere in the deep cold of space, the Defiant's broken engines burned once more, setting a new course. The fight was far from over. It had only just begun. In the cold darkness of space, the alien empire plotted its revenge. The Defiant had become more than just a ship. It had become a symbol of resistance. A symbol that had to be destroyed. And this time, the Empire wasn't sending hunters. They were building a trap. Deep inside the Empire's War Council, the leaders met. "We will not chase the Defiant anymore," one general said. Instead, the High Warlord growled, "We will make them come to us." A massive fleet was gathered. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers. An entire planet turned into bait. A fake distress signal would be sent. An ancient human colony supposedly under attack. They knew humans couldn't resist a call for help, especially not the crew of the Defiant. When the ship arrived, it would be crushed by overwhelming force. The Defiant would die, and the legend would die with it. Far away on the bridge of the Defiant, the signal arrived. Static crackled over the speakers. "Anyone, please, this is New Avalon, under attack." The crew listened in silence. New Avalon, one of the first human colonies beyond Earth. Abandoned long ago, or so everyone thought. Captain Ward narrowed his eyes. "It could be a trap," Harris warned. Ward nodded. "It is a trap," he said. "But if there's even a chance someone's alive, we answer." The crew didn't argue. The Defiant was a broken ship held together by hope, and hope demanded action. The Defiant jumped to New Avalon. The planet spun below them, its surface scared and burning. Orbiting it was a terrifying sight. An entire enemy armada. Hundreds of warships. All waiting. All ready to kill. The trap had been sprung. Sensors screamed alarms. Energy signatures lit up the screens. They were completely surrounded. Harris stared at the display in horror. "We're dead," he whispered. Captain Ward stood calmly. "No," he said. "We're Defiant." The alien fleet hailed them. On the screen, the High Warlord appeared, armored and sneering. "Welcome, little humans," he mocked. "You have fought well. You have been entertaining. But this is where your story ends. Stand down. Surrender. Die with honor." Captain Ward smiled slightly. He turned off the transmission without replying. The crew looked at him, waiting. "What's the plan?" Harris asked. Ward's eyes gleamed. "We remind them why they fear us." The Defiant moved. Not away from the enemy, but toward them. Straight into the heart of the fleet. The aliens were caught off guard. They expected panic. Retreat. Begging. Not this. The Defiant's engines roared, pushing the battered ship beyond its limits. It weaved through the enemy lines, dodging plasma blasts and missile barrages. Each move looked wrong, unpredictable, impossible. The Empire's perfect formation broke apart as ships scrambled to adjust. The Defiant's guns fired nonstop. Old cannons and scavenged alien weapons blasted holes in the massive fleet. Missiles made from scrap and stolen tech slammed into enemy hulls. One enemy battleship exploded in a fiery cloud. Then another. Then another. The Defiant fought like a wild beast cornered and in rage. It didn't fight for victory. It fought for survival. It fought for pride. It fought because giving up was not an option. Inside the ship, chaos ruled. Fires broke out on Deck 4. Life support on Deck 2 failed. Ammo was running low. But the crew didn't stop. They couldn't stop. They patched holes with their bare hands. They rerouted power through shattered circuits. They reloaded weapons with whatever they could find. The Defiant itself seemed to scream in anger, metal groaning, engines howling. It was alive. It was furious, and it would not die quietly. The High Warlord watched the battle unfold in disbelief. This wasn't war. This was madness. "Crush them," he roared. "All ships, focus fire." The enemy fleet turned its full might on the Defiant. Beams of deadly energy lanced out. Missiles swarmed the skies. The Defiant was hit again and again. Armor peeled away. Sections of the ship went dark. The bridge shuddered violently. Harris was thrown to the floor, bleeding from a gash on his forehead. "We can't hold much longer," he shouted. Ward wiped blood from his own face. "We hold," he said simply. Then, just as the Defiant seemed doomed, an idea sparked. Ward looked at the burning engines on the sensor display. The main reactor was barely holding together. If they pushed it into overload, if they turned the ship itself into a weapon, they could take the enemy fleet with them. He turned to the crew. "I won't order you," he said quietly. "This is suicide." One by one, the crew nodded. They knew. They chose. They were defiant. The reactor roared to life, hotter and brighter than ever. The Defiant plunged straight toward the High Warlord's flagship. Enemy ships scrambled to get out of the way. Too late. The Defiant slammed through enemy lines like a comet of rage. And just before reaching the flagship, the ship exploded. A brilliant, terrible explosion that lit up the void. An entire section of the fleet vanished in the blast. The trap had become their tomb. But as the fire faded, something moved in the wreckage. Something limping, burning, but alive. The Defiant, broken, bleeding, but alive. Somehow still alive. The ship that should have died 100 times before had done the impossible once again. And the legend grew even stronger. The galaxy trembled. Because if this was a broken ship at its worst, what would happen if Earth built another? The Defiant drifted through the battlefield, more wrecked than ship. Its hull was blackened and torn. Its engines flickered weakly. Whole sections were missing. And yet, it moved. Somehow, it moved. Across the stars, people watched in awe. The Empire had sent its greatest fleets. They had laid the perfect trap, and they had failed. The broken ship they had mocked had survived. The Defiant had defied death itself. Inside the bridge, alarms screamed. Sparks rained from broken panels. Harris wiped soot from his face and looked around. Miraculously, most of the crew was still alive. Bruised, bloody, exhausted, but alive. Captain Ward stood at the front, gripping the cracked rail. He gazed out at the ruined enemy fleet. Thousands of enemy soldiers dead. Dozens of warships destroyed. And one legend, stronger than ever. Ward's voice was quiet but firm. "Status. Life support at 12%, Harris croaked. Engines, barely holding. Weapons, almost gone. Ward nodded. And the enemy? Harris smiled weakly. Running. Across the battlefield, the surviving alien ships turned away. They didn't try to finish the Defiant. They fled, terrified. For the first time in history, an empire had run from a single ship. The message spread fast, first through the Empire's shattered fleets, then through the neutral worlds, then through every hidden human outpost, and finally, back to Earth. The story of the Defiant became legend in a matter of hours. A ship that should have failed. A mission that should have died. Instead, they had fought, and won. On Earth, millions gathered around holoscreens. Children listened with wide eyes. Old veterans wept openly. Leaders who had once doubted now stood in silence. And deep in their hearts, humanity remembered something they had forgotten. They were stronger than fear, stronger than weakness, stronger than despair. They were defiant. Repairs began aboard the battered ship. They used whatever they could find. Old parts, captured alien tech, even scraps from destroyed enemy ships. The Defiant wasn't pretty. It never had been. But it didn't need to be. It just needed to fight. It just needed to survive. And it would. Because now, the Defiant was more than metal and wires. It was hope. It was pride. It was a reminder that no matter how broken you were, if you kept fighting, you could still win. A few days later, a transmission crackled across the bridge. A single message, simple but powerful. Earth calls the Defiant home. Captain Ward smiled. Home. They hadn't heard that word in a long time. The crew cheered, weak but joyful. They set a course. The broken engines roared one more time. The stars blurred past as the ship limped forward. Toward Earth, toward home, toward legend. The Defiant's return was like a second sunrise. Every city on Earth lit up with celebration. Ships flew in escort formations. Flags waved across continents. Bells rang. Crowds gathered by the millions. And when the Defiant finally entered orbit, every human heart lifted. Captain Ward stood on the bridge, watching the blue and green planet grow larger. Tears filled his eyes, not from sadness, but from pride. They had made it, against every odd, against every enemy. They had made it. At the great ceremony on Earth, the leaders stood together. They didn't give medals. They didn't give awards. Instead, they gave something greater, a promise. They would never again build only perfect ships. They would never again rely only on technology. They would remember what had saved them. Courage, sacrifice, defiance, and from the wreckage of the Defiant, a new fleet would rise. Not just ships of steel and fire, but ships of spirit, ships that no enemy could ever truly defeat. Because now the galaxy knew, humanity could not be broken. And when humanity fought back, not even the stars were safe. The Defiant, once called a mistake, had become something more powerful than anyone could imagine. It had become a legend that would never die. Because legends, just like hope, just like humanity, were defiant forever. The Defiant floated in orbit over Earth, a symbol of impossible victory. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. Some cheered, some trembled, but not everyone celebrated. In the dark corners of space, old enemies watched. Enemies far worse than the empire humanity had just defeated. On the world of Dravik Prime, deep in forbidden space, a council of alien warlords met in secret. Massive creatures, armored and ancient, filled the dark hall with their growls. The largest one slammed its clawed hand onto the metal table. This, Defiant, it spat, should not exist. Another nodded. If the humans can turn scrap into a weapon that crushes empires, they are more dangerous than we believed. Silence fell. Even monsters feared what they had seen. Finally, the leader rose. Then we must destroy them now, it said coldly, before Earth becomes the center of a new power. The others agreed. And so a dark plan was set into motion, a fleet larger than any before, a weapon older than most civilizations, a force that would not underestimate humanity again. They would strike not at Earth's armies, but at its heart. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Captain Ward stood beside the battered hull of the Defiant. The ship was being honored with a massive monument, a museum, a memorial, and a warning to enemies. Ward stared up at the stars. Somewhere out there, he could feel it. A new storm was coming. He could not explain how. He just knew. Beside him, Harris asked quietly, "Do you think it's really over?" Ward shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "This was just the first battle." He placed his hand on the Defiant's scorched metal skin. "We showed them what broken humans can do." His eyes narrowed. "Next time, we'll show them what angry humans can do." In the skies above, the stars seemed to flicker, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting, because the legend of the Defiant was only the beginning, and humanity's true war had only just begun. The peace on Earth lasted only weeks, long enough for people to celebrate, long enough for hope to return, long enough to forget how dangerous the galaxy really was. But Captain Ward had not forgotten. Neither had the Defiant's crew. And when the first warning came, they were the ones who answered. A hidden outpost near the edge of human space sent a desperate transmission. Unknown fleet sighted. Massive numbers. Not Empire forces. Request immediate help. Then silence. Complete and final. Ward stood on the rebuilt bridge of the Defiant, reading the report. The ship had been repaired. Newer, stronger, even more dangerous than before. But even now, Ward knew. This new enemy was different. They weren't coming to conquer. They were coming to erase humanity forever. The Council on Earth debated. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to hide. Some still believed Earth could bargain its way to safety. But Captain Ward knew better. You couldn't reason with monsters who saw you as a disease. You could only fight. Or die. And Ward had made his choice long ago. He gathered his crew. Harris, Dr. Vela, Engineer Tomlin, Pilot Rika, all survivors of the first Defiance legend. They stood ready once more. Ward faced them with a grim smile. New war, new enemy. Same mission, he said. Survive. They grinned back at him. Tired, scared, unbreakable. They would not run. They would not surrender. They would defy again. As Earth prepared for the new invasion, something strange happened across the galaxy. Other worlds, who had once laughed at Earth, who had once mocked humanity's weakness, began to send messages, offers, alliances. They had seen the Defiant stand alone against impossible odds. And now, they wanted to stand with Earth, because they knew. If humanity fell, there would be no one left to fight the darkness. Earth was no longer just fighting for itself. It was fighting for the galaxy. On the day the new enemy fleet arrived, the skies above Earth burned gold. Thousands of human ships rose to meet them. Not perfect ships. Not beautiful ones. Ships patched with alien scrap. Ships piloted by civilians, engineers, farmers. And at the front of them all, leading the charge, the Defiant, a broken legend, reborn, a symbol that refused to die. The new enemy thought they would crush Earth easily. They were wrong. They had stepped into a storm fueled by rage, loss, and hope. They had woken the Defiant spirit once again. And as the first shots of the new war rang out across the stars, every human heart burned with one message. We are broken. We are battered, but we will never kneel. We are humanity. We are defiant. The real war had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again.